Hey guys, Sak here from SAKITECH, and in today's video what we're going to do is we are going to be comparing the Samsung Galaxy S20, the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, and of course the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. As you know, Samsung has released 3 new flagships, and I want to make sure I give you crisp, precise details so you make the right choice, because even though there's a lot of similarities between these 3 smartphones, there's also a bunch of differences that you have to carefully consider before you buy the right product. So let's dive in and get started, and let's be very clear. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to talk about everything that's the same on all these devices, and then in the second portion of the video I'm going to talk about everything that is actually different between these devices, and then finally we're going to do a conclusion, and I'm going to let you know which one you should choose based on your needs and based on facts. So let's dive in. Now, one thing is for sure, all 3 of these smartphones come in different sizes, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute. But first, let's quickly concentrate on every single thing that is the same on these smartphones that should not be considered when you're making a choice between these 3 smartphones. Let's dive in. Now, the very first thing that's the same is the actual screen quality, not the screen size, the screen quality. All 3 of these smartphones have a Quad HD Plus dynamic AMOLED screen with the same exact resolution, and all 3 of these phones do in fact support 120 Hz refresh rate. And finally, with regards to the actual screen, all 3 phones actually support HDR10 plus capability. Okay, so that's all the same stuff with the actual display. The next thing that's the same of these smartphones is the actual performance. They all have the same exact processor. If you're in the US, you get the Snapdragon 865 processor. All 3 phones are going to be equally amazing when it comes to performance, when it comes to gaming, when it comes to software experience and software fluidity. Every single one of them also has 12 gigabytes base RAM. That's a lot of RAM for any phone today, and all 3 of these as their base RAM have 12 gigabytes, and all of them have micro SD expansion option. So if you want to add extra storage to any one of these guys, you can expand your storage with a micro SD card, and that's up to 1 terabytes of extra storage on top of what you already have. The next thing I'm going to talk about, I think this is number 4 by now. All of these phones have wireless charging. They all have wireless power share. That's reverse wireless charging, so you can charge other phones using the back of any one of these devices. And of course, one more important thing, all of them have a built-in fingerprint sensor. It's under the display, it's invisible. All 3 of them have it, ultrasonic fingerprint sensor and Face ID, all right? And finally, when it comes to multimedia, they have stereo speakers. That means they have 2 speakers, and they all come with Dolby Atmos sound. So you get exceptional listening experience from those stereo speakers on all 3 phones, okay? And finally, one thing that might be important for some people, all of these guys come with 5G compatibility, okay? That doesn't mean you need 5G service, but if you have 5G service in your area, all of them will be able to connect to 5G, and if the 5G is not available, they're going to connect to any other band such as 4G or 3G or whatever is available in your area, okay? But they all come preloaded with 5G capability. So that's everything that's the same on between these devices. I'm going to put a quick summary on the screen so you can look at it and digest it. Now let's go ahead and talk about the differences that are going to make you decide between one or the other. Now the very first thing I want to talk about is the price, okay? The Samsung Galaxy S20 is $1,000. This is the smaller guy with a 6.2-inch display, okay? This one right over here, the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, this is $1,200 with 6.7-inch display, all right? And finally, we have $1,400 for the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, and this one has a massive 6.9-inch display. Remember, the quality of the displays is all the same. It's the size that matters. So that's the first thing you want to take a look at. Do you want the largest possible screen, or do you want something that fits into your hands properly, okay? Because if you get this one, I have average sized hands, I can still hold this, but it's going to be hard to use this with one hand. Now this one, the smallest one, the S20, is the easiest to use with one hand, okay? So that's one difference you want to concentrate on when you're making the choice. In my case, I like to have the largest screen possible, so I'll be getting the S20 Plus for maximum multimedia experience. So display size is important, and how you handle the phone is very important, okay? Now let's move on to one of the major differences between these two smartphones, and that's the camera, and that's where you want to really focus on, because look, the Samsung Galaxy S20 and the S20 Plus have a similar camera setup, but the S20 Ultra is at a whole other level, okay? First I want you to understand is the Samsung Galaxy S20 has 3 cameras. We have a main, we have a ultra wide, and we have a telephoto. The telephoto camera can do up to 30 times hybrid zoom. So you can zoom in on far away subjects all the way to 30 times hybrid zoom. And then remember, you have that 12 megapixel main camera, which is the standard camera most people use all the time. And then you have the 12 megapixel ultra wide camera for wide sweeping shots. And then you have that 64 megapixel telephoto camera that's going to be able to zoom in 30 times. Now the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus has the same exact 3 cameras as the S20, but when it has one little extra camera, that's not a big deal. That's the depth vision camera, and all that camera does is when you take a portrait shot of somebody, you get a nicer background blur. So the subject remains in focus, but the background gets blurred out. That's all this 4th camera does, and it's not a big deal. It should not matter when you're trying to decide between the S20 and the S20 Plus. Now, when we jump to the S20 Ultra is where things get very interesting. This guy also has 4 cameras. It's got the same depth vision camera that you get on the S20 Plus, but everything else is on a whole other level. So the main camera is going to be 108 megapixels, okay? That means you'll be able to take crisper shots with more detail in them with the main 108 megapixel camera. Then we have the 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and then we have a magical camera. This is a 48 megapixel telephoto camera. It's going to allow you to zoom 100 times hybrid zoom. Okay, so if you want to really zoom in to far away subjects, you want to get this guy. On top of that, if you want the best camera, you want to get this guy, because it has, even the main camera on this one is 108 megapixels. The main camera on the other 2 guys is 12 megapixels, all right? So this is going to be better, not because the megapixels are higher, because they made this camera better on purpose, because this is the Ultra. But then you also have the telephoto that gives you 100 times hybrid zoom. On the Samsung Galaxy S20 and the S20 Plus, you get 30 times hybrid zoom. All right? So if you are into camera, you want to go with the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. And when I say you're into camera, it's something that should matter to you a lot. Okay? Remember, you're paying extra money for that camera. It's $1,400. The other 2 are $200 and $400 less, respectively. So the camera is going to be a big deal. One more thing that might be a big deal for some people, the front camera. So the camera on the S20, the front camera on the S20 and the S20 Plus is 10 megapixels. But on the S20 Ultra, it's 40 megapixels. Now with the front camera, it's not going to be a big deal, but you're still going to get slightly better quality with the S20 Ultra, especially if you're somebody that uses the front camera all the time to take selfies or maybe do video conferencing or even vlogging, okay? And there's one more thing that's slightly important, not too important, but slightly important. When you buy the Samsung Galaxy S20, the only option you get is 128 gigabytes internal storage. But when you get the S20 and the S20 Plus, you have the option to choose either 128 gigabytes internal storage or 512 gigabytes of internal storage. This may or may not be a big deal because all three still have the micro SD expansion capability. Okay, so just something to focus on. And the final thing I want to talk about that's different between these three smartphones is the battery capacity. You have 4,000 milliamp hours on the S20, 4,500 milliamp hours on the S20 Plus, and 5,000 milliamp hours on the S20 Ultra. Okay, so most likely the Ultra is going to be the longest battery life, but that does not mean the other two are going to be bad. The only thing is the S20 Ultra is probably going to give you a little bit more juice compared to the other two. And there's only one final thing with the battery. When it comes to fast charging, only the S20 Ultra is going to support 45 watts super fast charging. The other two, they can only charge at 25 watts fast charging, which is pretty fast to be honest. But the 45 watts might charge your phone in 5 to 10 minutes faster than the other two. So those are all the differences. Again, I'm going to make a list on the actual screen so you can read them and quickly digest it. All right. And now let's move on and talk about a conclusion. Which one should you choose? So here's the formula. If you want the best of the best camera, you simply must get the S20 Ultra. And of course, if you want the largest screen size, you must get the S20 Ultra. Those are basically the only two major things that are on this phone that are not on the other two. Remember, performance, the same. Quality of the display, the build quality, it's all the same. But the camera on the S20 Ultra is better. The screen is larger and it's simply the best of the best. Okay, so $1,400 for this one. If you want to save some money, and you're not too crazy about the camera, because remember, these cameras on the S20 Plus and the S20 are still going to give you flagship cameras, okay? But if you decide to go with this one and slightly smaller screen sizes, either the S20 or the S20 Plus, you're saving a lot of money. With the S20, you're saving $400 compared to the $1,400. With the S20 Plus, you're saving $200 compared to $1,400. So that's all you want to look at. Just be aware of exactly what's different and what's the same and make a choice based on the facts. All right? Now, if you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them down below and let me know. And for now, guys, have a fantastic day. I will see you in the next video that's coming up very soon.